lectures. So you are very welcome, and we're now going to begin our presentations in Israel Sverner Room with the talk Recycled Flexible Packaging and High Performance in Circular Economy with Moisés Verb. He's the CEO. So welcome and good morning. It's a huge pleasure, Louise, everyone who is watching and listening, to talk about something that we're passionate about, which is the purpose of our life, recycling. This is something that makes us passionate because besides the benefits for the economy, it also brings benefits for society and for the environment. So we'll be talking about what we live through every day, which is to recycle. And now, in a context that is much wider, which is the circular economy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this work that we've been carrying out. We've done this for over 20 years, and this has brought us numerous lessons, knowledge. So, who is Plastiweber? It's a Brazilian company, and the purpose is to generate circular economy for plastics. We are in the town of Feliz, in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, near the urban area. We've been working ever since 97, and we evolved to recycle plastics. This was a very important change for the company because we started at the end, the transformation. However, we saw an opportunity, a need in recycling plastics. And since we had good knowledge in the area of transformation, the area of manufacturing and packaging, this was extremely important to be able to become vertical and go beyond the chain and then produce our own recycling resin. So I say to you, today our public it's a huge satisfaction to be able to talk to the society in general, engineers, people engaged in the environment, flexible packaging, which today is our main product. What is this? These are those that normally used to transport products from the industry to retail, and sometimes the other way around, from retail to our home. These flexible packaging, normally it's called film plastic. They call it soft plastic. It's this type of product that we recycle here. And this material is very important because it's light, you're able to protect, and you're also able to mold this to the product, and it will reach our house in a protected way.
Pois bem, pessoal, o plástico.
So plastic, therefore, is material that is very important for our society. It's very valuable and important, and its permanence in the circular economy is what makes it possible for it to continue to be a very important solution. However, this is not possible without the circular economy. We who are here, we will observe an important transition in the economical productive mode of society. 200 years ago, there was a huge revolution. We weren't alive at that time, but in 78 or up to 1820, we had us. In the 70s to the 1820, there was the Industrial Revolution. What did that bring us? In a planet that had less than 1 billion inhabitants, there was a jump in the quality of life of people. This allowed us to have consumer goods with quality and in sufficient quantity, so that in less than 200 years, humanity went from less than 1 million inhabitants to 8 million inhabitants. See how interesting this is. A humanity that already had a history of 10,000 years very quickly was able to drastically increase and improve considerably its quality of life. However, this model was not sustainable. It was based in a logic of extraction of non-renewable goods, transformation, and manufacturing with the residues being left in the environment. This was important, but we needed a solution that we would continue growing and improving our quality of life. So, what happens? The circular economy concept appears. This is very fundamented on pillars that allow us to make this scaling of population and consumption becomes sustainable. I'm going to show you a video and I'm going to show you how this process occurs, this flow of reverse logistics. And afterwards, we'll talk a bit more about circular economy so you can understand how this change will occur because we are living this change. Will be able to tell our children and our grandkids that we were in the midst of this transition. When they had the industrial revolution, they didn't even know what they were going through. There was no name for this, but now we know the name of the change, and we know that recycling is one of the important things so that circular economy can become a reality. Now, watch my video, and you'll understand a bit better how this reverse logistic flow takes place. Recycling process.
Que o vídeo não tem falas.
Formation of the pellet, quality control, production of new films, lab tests, packaging at the client, retail supply, residential collection. Well, folks, here you had a quick idea of the flow and the life cycle of a plastic packaging. It's quite wonderful. Those that live through the day to day realize the potential it has in the circular economy, the capacity of retaining intrinsic value of that material that initially was used, let's say, in fuel, bioplastic made of sugarcane, and where you use energy and resources, and it goes as virgin packaging to the market, then it comes back into the recycling. And this circle can be repeated numerous times. So look how cool, my friends. When you throw this out, we start with the first point, the first idea. When you throw it out accordingly, this continues with the flow for correct collection. This would be ideal that all the municipalities of Brazil have. Unfortunately, only 18% have it, and the public power only does something if there's public pressure. If today we have a commotion about plastic, this is folked in this pressure point. So we have to have collect this type of collection in all municipalities, doing it correctly at home and having the correct collection. That is perfect. Then we have this classification, which is done with care, look at the human factor, which is a differential, which is generates a lot of jobs. So it's a sequence of correct actions that need awareness of everyone involved. Action, we have to do this correctly at home. We have to be citizens, and we have to cooperate with all these companies and with the cooperatives that carry out this work. After we do this, we go into the mechanical part of the recycling, which is exactly what our colleagues from the Congress asked us for. So tell us a bit how this recycling is doing. People have no idea how this is done. So you're going to understand a bit how this process works. And I'm going to tell you something. It's quite simple. We have an industrial plant here, 14,000 square meters, where more or less 240 workers or people work. We get this pre-classified plastic. We have specific machinery, and then we go to a milling process. So, for example, a package, a film, it is milled in a very sort of fine grain, and it's turned into uh, another sort of, it goes in, then it goes into a sort of a washing process. It's not that different from what we do at home, but it's automated. It uses water. We have different temperatures, etc., to remove all the impurities of the plastic. After it's cleaned, it goes through a drying process. It's not that different, again, from our homes. So we go through this drying process so that there's no humidity. We use heat, we use friction so that it's able to have low humidity. After that, we have the next step in the process, which is the recovery. What is recovery? Recovery is that we have an equipment. You can see that on the screen. These are European, we call these recovery extruders. These are very modern machines. They're very expensive, and they melt the plastic in different zones of heating, uh, going over 280 degrees often, and it becomes liquid. Once it's in a liquid state, it goes through a filtering system. We have different screens or meshes, so any impurity is stays there. After it's filtered, it's transformed through a granulating process in tiny pellets. And these pellets remind us of peas, if you like. If you want to have an idea of the format, you can see these tiny little peas, which this is the plastic resin, which is recycled from this packaging post consumption. Why do I highlight this? The big challenge of recycling are the post consumer packagings, because we have the post industrial as well. The post industrial is a residue that is normally cleaner, less mixed up, so it no longer represents a challenge. The big challenge in Brazil is the recycling of the products that have already ended their cycle, the first cycle of consumption and disposal. And look at this, the PET, the rigid, the pots. These are materials that are used a lot in Brazil. Because of their characteristics, they're very easy in their recycling process. But flexible plastic is much more of a challenge. But it can be recycled for sure. And I'm going to talk about the huge steps that we gave in this process. After the pellet, it goes to another process. It's an extrusion process. It's this sort of balloon that you can see here, where it's again submitted to high temperatures. It goes through a matrix, and with the air, it forms this balloon that you can see. After this balloon is formed, it then is squashed and it turns into a spool. Please observe these spools. This is already a ready product from our company. These films, which are wound up on these spools, are used in the industry to package several types of products. The name of this product is, it's a flexible film, stretch film. Different names are given to this product. And the next product that the majority of you probably know and probably like is this type of plastic. So you can get these spools from the previous slide and you can pass it through a lamination process, and then you'll be able to form this bubble wrap. And at the bottom part, you can laminate another spool of the same bubble wrap. It seems very simple, but it's a very interesting process. And we are the largest manufacturers of bubble wrap in Brazil. So it is 100% recycled. I didn't say recyclable. I said recycled in the past. So the process was done and this product was produced. This is rather marvelous. We can consume this using this type of solution. But all of this would not be possible if we didn't have quality control, rigorous quality control of all the steps of the process, ever since the qualification of the supplier, who's an outsider, the receiving of the raw material, the classification, the mechanical recycling, and the qualification of the resin that results, and then the whole production process of the packaging. So the quality of in this market is a process, is an ascending process. It's an informal market that's qualifying itself more and more, and it will be very important. And we're going to talk a bit more about this.
How do we ensure quality? In Brazil today, we have a seal called Cineplus. It's a certification that was created by our entity, Cineplus, and it classifies companies according to basic criteria, which are environmental licensing, quality control. So the minimum that any company needs to be a good recycler. So we now have this classification, and it was one of the first companies to have it. But it's not enough to only have quality. Today, ESG is something that everyone talks about. ESG stands for Environment, Social, and Governance. And why is it so important? Companies today need to know who they are buying from. So, for example, Smeta Sedex is now required by over 52 brands around the world. So in order to have the safety, companies need to be approved. And we were able to do it as a competitive edge. So we are the only recycler in Brazil to have a Smeta Sedex approval so that we can service companies like Coca-Cola and Unilever, who already have very relevant projects with us. So our company is engaged in reaching these goals. They have defined that by 2025, they will use 30% recycled packaging materials. And by 2040, it will be 100%. These companies, when they say that they are going to reach this goal, they really do. It's a bit different from how we work here in Brazil. Now, another very important certification is the European Certification of Plastic Recyclers. This is the most important certification for recyclers in the world. And it has two very important criteria in recycling, which are, first, quality assurance on the long term. So you cannot have a packaging that will work for 6 months, but it needs to have quality on the long term. And this is one of the big challenges in recycling. And another very important point is that it guarantees product traceability for post-recycled material. So that in this wave of recycling, no companies will use a resin that is not recyclable after consumption. So they have a process to make sure that this is not simply greenwashing. So we are proud to be the first company in the Americas to have the EU Cert Plast certification. We're very proud of it because it required a lot of work. It was a big effort. And now we are collecting the fruits from this effort. That's great. But where does this go? What do we do with all of this material? So let's talk a bit about the practical use of these packaging materials. One industry that uses plastic packaging for is the furniture industry. So here we use shrinkable plastic wrap in packaging furniture. Another industry that makes us very proud is the food and beverage industry. 18 years ago, we broke an important paradigm. The food industry did not use recycled plastics as a secondary packaging material. There were a couple of dogmas in this area. First, they believed it didn't work, and second, they believed it was not allowed. But this was a mistake. There were companies that were able to provide quality materials for this market, and through a partnership, we were able to debunk this myth in the food industry and show that a secondary packaging can use recycled material. So this was a paradigm that we broke 18 years ago in the dairy industry. Here we see an example, and then this was taken to other areas with shrinkable plastic for flours and powders, where we have many clients who have used this package for many years without ever having a problem, and who are extremely pleased with these results. So again, this is not just an empty speech. This is all done in practice. We just need to expand this process. Another industry that uses it successfully is as a packaging for automatic packaging. So for example, for hygiene products or powder detergent, and even pet foods for cats and dogs. So we are one of the companies in the world who produce film for automatic packaging, and it performs perfectly. And it uses up to 100% recycled materials. Again, it is possible. We just need to encourage this chain, and we'll tell you about how we do it. Another area that uses recycled materials is the footwear and clothing industry. This is great. The footwear industry has taken a huge step forward. They're now using cardboard boxes wrapped in plastic. And this reduces their need for delivery logistics by 15%. Imagine 15% fewer trucks to deliver all shoes. This is an enormous gain. And they also drastically cut the need for packaging stock. They also reduced packaging costs and the environmental impact that it has. So to give you an idea, if you need to recycle 1 kilogram of plastic, you need 90% less water and 85% less energy than to recycle a cardboard box. And they do not have, they no longer have problems with theft because you can't open this package and then close it back again. And it provides more value so that it can be reused in our economy. We also do this in laundries. An example is here on the right, where they're also adding an automated packaging step with plastic, a great project as well. Finally, in terms of products, we have recycled resins, and we have low-density polyethylene and linear low-density polyethylene. So we use resin, and we understand how we can use it so that it can supply grain owners with their needs. So this is a great project. We are focusing on these companies that need technical solutions so that they can service their own clients. So today, we are recognized as one of the best in the market in post-consumption recycled resins. Now let's talk about the environmental impacts of all this work. This is fantastic. For each ton of recycled plastic, we have a reduction of 1,000 liters of oil consumption. We also reduced 3,000 kilowatt hours of electricity consumption and 2,000 kilograms of greenhouse gases, and also a reduction of over 7,000 liters of water in the total process. This is the power of recycling. Plastic in itself is sustainable because it has a very low carbon footprint, and it becomes even more sustainable when it's recycled. The only problem that plastics cause is when they are not recycled. So this is a fantastic material with great potential in a circular economy. In order to be recycled, it has all of these properties and a great amount of added value. So we are very happy today because besides the environmental gains, recycling is also creating social consequences, which are very positive. To give you an idea, as our source, we have cooperatives, and cooperatives work in relatively poor conditions. They are underpaid, they don't have much infrastructure, and when we're trying to create a circular economy, we start interacting with co-ops, and this has allowed us to understand where they're coming from and also upgrade their process, as well as paying them more. This has generated gains. So these families, these co-ops always have between 20 and 30 people, and we can increase their income by 20, 30 to 50%. And this means more food on their table, better education for them. So besides doing good for the environment, I also see that this has a great potential in the social sphere. The social economy generates many jobs. It brings humanity back into the productive process, and it generates social inclusion. Besides the cooperative, we also work on social and environmental projects, such as the Sustainable School, where we teach children to sort their waste, take it to school, and at school, we can pay them for the material they bring. This is a source of income for schools to invest in basic needs. And finally, we also create environmental awareness in a generation that learns something and never changes, and also teaches their parents. So education is even multiplied. This is simply fantastic. So plastics are a currency. People will soon understand that we were sending to landfills our own money. And what is sadder than that is that we were paying to bury it in a landfill. As you know, landfills come at a cost. So we are able to maintain plastics in the economy, and we are definitely doing good for the environment, for society, and for the government, which no longer will have this expense. Quite contrary, this is put back into the economy and generates taxes again. So circular economy only needs some basic pillars to be put into place so that it can be made practical. For example, reverse logistics. We need to have a good design for recycling. Products need to be recyclable, and we need fair taxation. Unfortunately, this is something that we do not have yet. When we start learning about the circular economy in the Exchange for Change hub, well, we had a brilliant professor who was Beatriz Luz, and we learned that the circular economy cannot appear by itself. It needs to be built with all the links in the chain, with the industry that makes foods and drinks, with the retailers who sell, with consumers who need to dispose of plastics correctly, with the government, which is providing reverse logistics and fair taxation, with cooperatives, which are an essential link, with waste managers who can automate this sorting. Instead of running out of space in their landfills, they can even make this plastic be a source of income. So circular economy is a sustainable model. It's a model that generates a lot of resources, a lot of raw materials without generating non-renewable extraction. And that's why I need all of you to understand these principles today and to contribute with us, because when this pandemic started, Plastiweber grew about 40%. We did not have, there was a lack of virgin resins, but recycling never stopped. When the world was nearly collapsing because of its complex logistical chains, when petrochemical companies stopped and had trouble coming back, when we had the storms in Texas, when refineries had to close, recycling never stopped. Circular economy is a decentralized model that is spread across society and that requires a collective of people to work together. And it only requires one thing: previous consumption, so that a new process can happen and generate a new product. Therefore, my friends, I'm counting on all of you, because circular economy is something that we can only do together. And Plastiweber could have grown much more this year, but we did not have enough material. We're sure that we're going to evolve more and more with each year, and we count on your partnership. Thank you very much for your attention, and please understand that our mission is to talk about the circular economy and generate an ecosystem to make sure that plastic recycling takes place, and so that we have this wonderful solution, which is plastics, but through a circular and inclusive model. Thank you, Luis. I know that I'm coming to the end of my time, so I'm now open for questions. Thank you very much, Moisés Weber, the CEO of Plastiweber, for your great presentation. We have a couple of minutes, Moisés, for you to answer questions from our attendees. So we're going to start with a question from Marco Joanes Reicher. His question is, what is the tax burden on recycled plastic products versus virgin plastic materials? There should be advantages to encourage recycling, right? This is a question from Marco Joanes Reicher. Thank you for your question. That's a very good question. We have the same tax burden, meaning that when products are sold, we are taxed at following the same criteria that is used for virgin materials, but there's a major difference. When we buy materials, we don't receive any credit. There is no tax credits here. So it's not that taxation is not advantageous for recycled plastics. It's quite contrary. It's more expensive because you have the same treatment at the end, but we don't have the same credits at the beginning. So a company like ours pays higher taxes in this package. It's like a double taxation. We pay more than a virgin plastics company. We have been making an effort to change this through our bioplastics chambers, through the network of plastic cooperation. And many of the stakeholders are engaged to change this. CNI, Cineplus, and we really hope that society will see this and will start demanding this from politicians, because people have a lot of power. All you need to do is ask. It might not be quick, but this is the route that often works the best. Moisés, we now have a question from Bruna Schneider-Moura. Nowadays, do companies already have recycling plants for their materials or products, or is this something that is still being built? We're living in a very exciting time, and thank you for your question, Bruna. Companies, especially large companies, are extremely engaged in finding solutions, not only so that they can buy recycled packaging, but also to dispose correctly of their own materials. I'll give you an example. We have a project here that's called Nature Cycle, where besides selling recycled packaging, we collect plastic scrap and we bring it back to the production material. So companies are very committed to this. And this, of course, happened because of popular pressure. They understand that if they don't find this kind of solution, they're going to lose some of the market, and it's advancing very quickly. So we're gaining market as we've never gained before. We are not being able to service all of our clients. We have huge demands, but of course, we're growing a lot because of it. So yes, companies are doing their share. Consumers are doing their share. And this is the movement that we really need. We need to prefer brands that use recycled plastics. And this is one of the biggest drivers for a circular economy. So, Bruna, companies have been doing it, and it's going to make a big difference. We now have a question from Pedro Ítalo da Cruz. He says, congratulations for your talk. Can you mention some of the recycled resins you use? Of course. So to give you an idea, Pedro, today in our supply chain, we have co-ops, retailers, we have companies that collect waste, and our own clients. All of them, by rule of thumb, send us used packaging materials that has been disposed of, made of low-density polyethylene, low-density linear polyethylene, which are basically, the plastic wrap you see in the supermarket, which are clear and flexible, shrink wrap, stretch wrap, bubble wrap, plastic bags. So this is the raw materials that we recycle. There are many recyclers today which use different kinds of materials. We have 1,200 recyclers in Brazil. And since there are many kinds of plastic, some of them specialize in some sorts of material. We specialize on flexible polyethylene plastics.
Moisés, we have one more question from Giovanni Cordeiro de Assis. Good morning. Congrats for the excellent presentation. I would like to know if you have any initiatives and partnerships with universities due to the importance of the strengthening of ties between universities and industries. I'm a researcher, and I see this difficulty of this type of interaction in Brazil. That is so true, Giovanna. I noticed that, there is a gap between academia and the industry. And I believe this is a huge opportunity because the circular economy is precisely that. Have different players talking. I believe that the network of cooperation was a huge event. When we were talking about ecosystem, I never thought it was so literal because there we were with petrochemicals, the transformation industry, the large brands, retail, cooperators, recyclers. In the beginning, we talked and it was even different languages. So it was very tough, huge challenge in the beginning. But the first vision I had is that people did not talk. And I think this model is we have to get out of our comfort zone, out of the box. And it's more or less as if it were a line where one talks with the one before and the one that comes after. Now we have a circular model where everyone talks to everyone. Universities are very important. We do have some ongoing researchers, but I think that we could have more. And also for the social projects. Today we have some social projects with some institutions, but the university is a huge opportunity. So yes, we have little and we can have much more. And I am available. We have a wonderful project called Live It, Visit a Live School, where we have volunteers in institutions, in stores to receive waste, and this is afterwards reverted to health. So it's a really cool project. And besides sustainable school, we have other opportunities for further partnerships. Well, now we have a question from Pamela Rosa Oliveira. Congratulations. Your talk after recycle, can the same polymer go through the recycling process? If yes, can you produce the same product or would it be for a different application? That's a wonderful question. We have two recycling processes. We have the upcycling and the downcycling. The upcycling gets a product and transforms it into the same product again. That's what we do. It's the added value recycling. So you get the milling of the plastic and you make a new. The other process is to get a used packaging and transform it in a product with an inferior application. So you made some device or something for the civil construction or so it is desirable that the plastic be recyclable and turn into the same product. And you asked me, but can you make the same product? And I understood that you said, well, can we do this several times? Yeah, you can do it many times. Today, I receive the plastic that we've recycled beforehand. So this cycle can be repeated many times. Sometimes we have a bit of a loss of properties, might lose a bit of transparency, but we can do this numerous times. And when it's a question of color, of some other attribute, you can uh, apply this in other fronts with an injection or a chair or some plastic wood where it will be used, or else you can have a product with a long-term use where it might last 20, 30, 50 years. So it can last for a long time and it can help us for a long time. I think that we've gone to the extremes because if you think many years back when we used to go to the supermarket and we used to buy beer or soft drinks, we had those glass bottles, which was so uncomfortable. Today, we have extreme comfort, which is to get the product, unpack it. Sometimes we don't even want to uh, segregate or classify, and we think everything came from the sky. So we are not, now we have to make an effort, a small effort. Circular logistics, the reverse logistics, the circular economy, a small effort not to go back to the past. So make packaging turn into new packages. This is totally feasible. We do this here every day, 10,000 tons per year. So if you have any idea of value, you know that that is a lot. Well, Moisés, let's move on to the last question. It comes from Luisa Vitória Mendonça do Nascimento. Plastiweber, does it have projects that contribute to recycling as a sustainable school and Race for Life? Is any program that helps research referring to this topic, even if it's a database that helps to create projects or the possibility of getting to know the company better? Luisa, thank you for following our projects. It makes us extremely proud, and we are in expanding. We have goal for both, and we count on everyone to continue cooperating. Plastiweber, during years, we've received universities here at our headquarters showing the whole productive process. We understand that so that in order for changes to happen, We have to demonstrate how the recycling occurs so that people understand the process and the gaps that exist in this chain. We don't yet have something in this line, sort of an academic study shared, but we do this in practice. Last year, we had a series of live events. We invited authorities on this topic to explain how this topic happens. So when the pandemic finishes, please come and visit our process. You will be most welcome. We love what we do. We're very proud of what we do. And to talk about this is always a huge pleasure. Well, the other questions, due to the time constraint, will be sent to the speaker and he will respond later. We thank Moisés Weber for his participation. Moisés, thank you so much. Thank you, Luis. And thank you to all the organizers of the Congress. It is a very important forum so that our voice can be heard and that we can make the changes to really create this type of economy. The world, humanity needs this, and it's vital that we have this high value channel. Thank you very much and have a wonderful event. Thank you, Moisés Weber from Plastiweber. Before we start the next talk, to access simultaneous translation, choose the language you want at the top part of the screen. The material in English, like the guide and the slides that are being presented by the speakers, are available at the website cbplastico.com.br. In order to ask questions to the speakers, please use the specific field for questions, which is located at the bottom part of the screen. The questions will be replied live according